Before you toss that penny aside or drop it into a jar, listen carefully, because that tiny copper coin in your hand might be hiding a secret worth hundreds, thousands, or even life-changing money. Most people walk past these rare Lincoln cents every single day without even knowing they just handled a small fortune. Today, we're diving deep into the top 3 rare U.S. Lincoln 1-cent coins that look completely ordinary, but their true value is explosive. These are the kinds of pennies that slip through circulation unnoticed, only to later shock collectors with jaw-dropping auction prices. So get ready, because by the end of this video, you'll never look at a penny the same way again. And you might even find out that the rarest coin of your life is already sitting in your pocket right now. The story of the 1988 Lincoln cent begins long before the coin itself was struck, as it is part of a lineage that stretches back to 1909, when the United States Mint introduced the first Lincoln cent, honoring the 100th anniversary of Abraham Lincoln's birth. The design, created by Victor David Brenner, became one of the most iconic in American numismatics, and its longevity set the stage for every future issue, including the 1988 cent. The coin carried the familiar portrait of Abraham Lincoln. On the obverse, while the reverse in 1988 still featured the Lincoln Memorial, a design introduced in 1959 to mark the 150th anniversary of Lincoln's birth. By the time 1988 arrived, the Lincoln Memorial reverse had already been in use for nearly 3 decades, and the cent had transitioned through several composition changes. In 1982, the United States Mint made one of the most significant changes in the coin's long history, shifting from the classic bronze alloy of copper tin and zinc to a new copper-plated zinc composition. This change was driven by rising copper prices and the need to produce the cent more economically. By 1988, all Lincoln cents were struck using this newer composition, which consisted of a zinc core with a thin outer layer of copper, giving it the appearance of the traditional copper coin while maintaining much lower production costs. The year 1988 fits into an interesting era for the Lincoln cent. During the late 1980s, the Mint was producing enormous quantities of coins as the United States economy needed a steady supply of small change. This led to high mintage numbers for the 1988 cent, with billions of coins struck at both the Philadelphia and Denver mints. The coins themselves were produced primarily for circulation, meaning that most 1988 cents served in daily commerce, moving through hands across the country, and rarely saved in high grade. This makes gem-quality examples desirable among collectors today, as only a small portion survived with pristine surfaces and strong original luster. One fascinating aspect of the 1988 Lincoln cent lies in its die varieties and the transitional elements that occurred due to changes in design hubs used at the Mint. In the late 1980s, the United States Mint was gradually updating and refining the master dies that produced the coins, and this process introduced subtle differences in certain design features. The most well-known of these for the 1988 cent is the so-called 1988 reverse, of 1989 variety. This occurs on some Philadelphia minted cents where the reverse design is actually the version intended for the following year. The easiest way to identify this variety is through the style of the designer's initials FG located to the right of the Lincoln Memorial. On the reverse used for 1989, the initials have a slightly different shape and spacing. Collectors prize this error because it reflects an important transitional moment in the production process and because only a small portion of 1988 cents were struck with this reverse variety. The Denver Mint also produced huge numbers of 1988 cents, and while the majority are considered common, there are collectors who focus on high-grade examples and search for errors from that facility. Errors for both mints from this period can include off-center strikes, die cracks, die chips, and examples with weak or distorted lettering. All of these contribute to the fascination collectors have with modern-era cents, which may appear ordinary, but hold the potential for hidden surprises. From a historical perspective, the 1988 Lincoln cent represents a period when the cent was still an essential unit of American currency, despite ongoing discussions about its usefulness. As inflation continued to rise during the 1970s and 1980s, the buying power of the cent declined, but the mint continued producing billions of them because businesses and banks still demanded them for everyday transactions. The debate about eliminating the cent was already starting, but it would be many more years before it became a mainstream topic. During this time, the mint maintained high production efficiency and consistency, ensuring that the coins remained reliable for the public. While the design of the 1988 cent may appear unchanged at first glance, it is part of a much larger American story. Abraham Lincoln's portrait continued to serve as a national symbol of leadership unity and democratic ideals. The choice to place Lincoln on the cent in 1909 had been groundbreaking, as it was the first time a real historical person appeared on everyday United States coinage. The fact that his likeness remained unchanged into 1988 reflects both the respect the nation holds for Lincoln and the enduring appeal of Brenner's original artwork. The reverse featuring the Lincoln Memorial also carried symbolic weight. The memorial itself is one of the most visited landmarks in Washington, D.C., and it embodies the nation's reverence for Lincoln's legacy. Depicting this structure on the cent connected the coin to themes of unity, equality, and historical remembrance. For many Americans, the Lincoln cent, especially the memorial reverse, became one of the first coins they learned to recognize and one of the first to spark curiosity about the past. By the late 1980s, the mint was improving its technology, allowing for more efficient die creation and more consistent strike quality. This meant that even though billions of cents were made each year, the mint could maintain high standards of detail and clarity in the design. However, with such large quantities being produced, coins were also subject to heavy mechanical stress, and many entered circulation with small imperfections. These imperfections today contribute to the diversity collectors find when examining high-grade rolls or bags of 1988 cents. Collectors of modern Lincoln cents often look for two primary goals when studying the 1988 issue. The first is finding well-preserved examples with strong mint luster and minimal surface marks. Since most 1988 cents were used heavily, finding perfect specimens is far more difficult than the large mintage numbers suggest. The second major goal is searching for the 1988 reverse of 1989 variety, which has become one of the most desirable finds of the decade. This variety stands as a reminder that even in a highly mechanized modern minting process, small human or mechanical, oversights can result in unexpected treasures. Beyond minting details, the 1988 Lincoln cent captures a snapshot of American life during the late 1980s. It was a period of rapid technological advancement, expanding global influence and cultural shifts. The cent circulated in the pockets of millions of Americans during a time marked by economic changes, new innovations, and shifting cultural landscapes, while most people barely noticed the coin during its everyday use. It nonetheless played a role in the daily rhythm of life, serving as change for groceries, vending machines, parking meters, and countless small purchases. As coin collectors and historians look back today, the 1988 Lincoln cent remains an important member of the iconic Lincoln series. It reflects the transition of the design from the long-running memorial reverse to the future redesigns that would arrive in later years. It offers collectors a chance to study subtle variations, minting updates, and the final stages of the pre-1990 design period. The coin carries within it the stories of the past, the artistry of Brenner and Gasparo, and the operational decisions of the mint as it adapted to modern challenges. The history of the 1990 Lincoln cent is an important chapter in the long-running story of the United States 1-cent coin, and it reflects a moment of transition in both American coinage technology and the cultural significance of the Lincoln design. The year 1990 arrived at a time when the Lincoln cent had already been in circulation for more than 80 years, and its design, featuring the portrait of Abraham Lincoln by Victor David Brenner, had become one of the most familiar. Images in American life. By the start of the 1990s, the coin had gone through many changes in composition and production methods, and it served as a window into the evolution of the U.S. mint's manufacturing processes. The 1990 cent is notable because it is part of the era when the mint was fully committed to the copper-plated zinc composition first introduced in 1982 as a response to rising copper prices. This change was important because it marked the beginning of a modern cent that was cheaper to produce, lighter in weight, and more cost-efficient for the mint. By 1990, the production of these copper-plated zinc cents was well established, and the mint had refined the methods used to bond the copper layer to the zinc core, ensuring durability and consistency for billions of coins entering circulation. To understand the importance of the 1990 cent, it helps to look back at the broader context of the Lincoln cent's history. The coin was first released in 1909 to honor the 100th anniversary of Abraham Lincoln's birth, and it became the first regular-issue U.S. coin to feature a real historical person rather than a symbolic figure. This made the cent a landmark in American numismatics and paved the way for many future designs. Over the decades, the reverse design changed from the wheat ears used from 1909 to 1958 to the Lincoln Memorial design introduced in 1959 to commemorate the 150th anniversary of Lincoln's birth. By 1990, the Lincoln Memorial reverse had been in use for 31 years, and it had become equally iconic, especially because it subtly included a small depiction of the statue of Lincoln sitting inside the memorial, visible between the columns when examined under magnification. The year 1990 also sits within a period of extremely high production numbers for the cent. The U.S. mint facilities in Philadelphia and Denver were producing billions annually to meet the nationwide demand for small denomination coinage. Philadelphia struck cents without a mint mark, while Denver cents carried the familiar D-mint mark. San Francisco struck proof cents for collectors, and in 1990 something unusual happened with the San Francisco proofs. A small number of proof cents were mistakenly released without the S-mint mark, and these became known as the famous 1990 no-S proof cents. This error is extremely rare and highly sought after by collectors, and it gives the 1990 cent a special place in modern numismatic history. Such errors occurred because proof coins required a separate mint mark punching process, and on rare occasions, the punch was not applied to the die, leading to the creation of coins bearing no mint mark. Production quality during this period also reflects technological improvements in die preparation. The mint was shifting from older die polishing methods toward more modern machining and laser processes, which improved the clarity of details in the design. This explains why many 1990 cents, especially proof examples, exhibit sharp details in Lincoln's portrait and crisp lines in the Lincoln Memorial. The high quality of the dies also meant that even circulation strikes can appear well-defined and attractive. For collectors, the 1990 cent is often examined for the strength of its strike, overall eye appeal, and the presence of any doubling or die varieties, though major varieties for this year are uncommon compared with other dates. Beyond physical production, the 1990 cent represents an era when the penny was becoming increasingly controversial in economic discussions. By the late 1980s and early 1990s, many economists questioned whether the cent should remain in production because inflation had reduced its purchasing power and the cost of minting was approaching or exceeding its face value. Despite these debates, the cent remained firmly in production, and the 1990 issuance illustrates the continued public reliance on the denomination for everyday transactions, including sales tax calculations, retail pricing, and cash-based commerce. Culturally, the 1990 cent continued to serve as a symbolic link to Abraham Lincoln and to American values of unity, leadership, and perseverance. Millions of people used the cent in 1990 without giving it much thought, yet the image of Lincoln on the coin served as a constant reminder of a figure who shaped the nation. The Lincoln Memorial reverse reinforced this symbolism by displaying the monument dedicated to honoring Lincoln's legacy in Washington, D.C. For young collectors in the 1990s, the cent remained the most accessible entry point into coin collecting, and the 1990 issues were among the coins they would encounter in pocket change, starting their journey into numismatics. The rarity of the 1990 no-S proof cent added a sense of excitement to the year, making it one of the standout, modern rarities of the series. Only a very small number of these coins are known, and they command high prices because they combine modern minting history with the thrill of a dramatic minting error. Collectors often compare it to the other famous no-S varieties like the 1971, 1975, and 1983 proof errors, making the 1990 example one of the more desirable modern coins. As the decade progressed, the 1990 cent remained common in circulation, but still important to collectors because it represents the early years of the modern zinc era. It also serves as a snapshot of a transitional period in U.S. minting technology and an example of how even a widely circulated coin can hold historical and cultural value. Examining a 1990 cent today provides insight into how the mint adapted to changing economic conditions, improved manufacturing techniques, and continued the enduring legacy of Abraham Lincoln's image on America's most produced coin. The 1990 Lincoln cent also reflects the broader story of how the United States Mint balanced tradition with modernization during the late 20th century. The mint had to serve a vast and growing economy, while also preserving the artistic and historical elements that made the Lincoln cent a cultural landmark. As America entered the 1990s, the nation was experiencing economic shifts, including changes in manufacturing, global trade, and consumer habits, and these changes subtly influenced how coinage was produced and used. Small denomination coins like the cent were still essential for pricing strategies in stores and for the millions of cash transactions happening every day across the country. The technological environment at the Mint in 1990 was far more advanced than it had been just a decade earlier. The increasing use of computer-aided engraving and precision die-making allowed artists and engravers to maintain the fine details of the Lincoln design with greater consistency. The portrait of Lincoln on the obverse retained its character while benefiting from subtle refinements that made the coin sharper and more uniform. The Lincoln Memorial on the reverse continued to show the iconic building with its column steps and the miniature representation of the statue of Lincoln at the center. These details had to remain faithful to the original 1959 reverse created by Frank Gasparo, and the Mint took great care to keep the design crisp, even. As die technology changed, another important aspect of the 1990 cent is the role it played in the growing discussions of coinage efficiency and cost analysis. Since the cent had been shifted to copper-plated zinc in the early 1980s, the Mint carefully monitored how the new composition behaved in circulation. By 1990, it was clear that the zinc core struck with a thin layer of copper was holding up well under everyday use. At the same time, studies examined how long the coins lasted in circulation and how the public perceived the change in weight and appearance. Many people noticed little difference, while some older collectors still preferred the heavier copper cents of earlier years, but the new composition was becoming widely accepted. The history of the 1994 Lincoln cent traces its roots back to the long tradition of the Lincoln penny series, first introduced in 1909 to commemorate the 100th anniversary of Abraham Lincoln's birth. The design featuring the portrait of President Lincoln on the obverse was created by Victor David Brenner and has remained one of the most iconic and longest-running designs in United States coinage history. By 1994, the Lincoln cent had already been in continuous production for 85 years, representing both historical continuity and the evolution of American coin manufacturing technology. In 1994, the Lincoln cent was struck at two main United States mint facilities, the Philadelphia Mint and the Denver Mint. Both mints produced circulation strike coins, while the San Francisco Mint produced proof coins for collectors. The Philadelphia coins carried no mint mark, while the Denver coins bore a small D beneath the date on the obverse. The proof coins from San Francisco carried the E.S. mint mark. Proof coins were struck multiple times using polished dies, giving them a mirror-like finish and sharp details intended for collectors rather than circulation. By the early 1990s, the composition of the Lincoln cent had already changed from its original bronze alloy to a copper-plated zinc core. This transition had begun in mid-1982 due to rising copper prices, and by 1994, all circulating Lincoln cents were composed of 975% zinc and 25% copper plating. The switch significantly reduced production costs, while maintaining the familiar color and appearance of the traditional penny, although it also made the coin more susceptible to corrosion and environmental damage over time. The obverse of the 1994 Lincoln cent continued to feature Brenner's portrait of Lincoln facing right with the inscriptions, "In God We Trust Liberty," and the date, 1994. The reverse depicted the Lincoln Memorial design, introduced in 1959 to honor the 150th anniversary of Lincoln's birth, designed by Frank Gasparo. The reverse shows the grand neoclassical monument located in Washington, D.C., with the tiny figure of the statue of Lincoln visible between the columns. The inscriptions, "United States of America," "E pluribus unum," and "1 cent" surround the image. The 1994 cent does not hold major significance in terms of design changes, but it remains an important part of the ongoing Lincoln Memorial cent era, which spanned from 1959 to 2008. It represents the stability of the design and the continued popularity of the Lincoln series among collectors. During this period, the mint focused on mass production as billions of coins were needed for daily transactions. In fact, over 6 billion Lincoln cents were struck in 1994 across all mints, making it one of the most common modern coins. While most 1994 Lincoln cents are common, there are a few varieties and minting errors that draw interest from numismatists. Some examples include double-die obverses where parts of the lettering or the date appear doubled, die cracks caused by aging dies, and off-center strikes resulting from misalignment of the coin, blank in the press. Some coins have also been discovered with plating blisters or missing copper plating, exposing the zinc core beneath which can give them a unique appearance, although these are usually the result of minting issues rather than intentional variations. In terms of value circulated 1994, pennies are typically worth their face value due to the large mintage but uncirculated examples, especially those graded MS-67 or higher, can fetch premium prices among collectors. Proof coins from the San Francisco Mint also hold additional value due to their quality and limited mintage. The condition of the coin and the presence of any recognized errors or varieties greatly affect collectability. The year 1994 also marks a time when the United States Mint was transitioning into more modern coin production methods. The use of computer-aided engraving and improved quality control systems helped maintain consistency in coinage during this era. The Lincoln cent continued to serve as an educational symbol, connecting the American public to the nation's history and the enduring legacy of Abraham Lincoln, even as society moved further into the digital age. In the broader context of American history, the Lincoln cent has always been more than just small change. It represents the principles of unity and perseverance that Lincoln himself stood for. In 1994, as in every year since 1909, the coin reminded Americans of their 16th president's leadership. During one of the most challenging periods in the nation's past, the Lincoln cent's presence in everyday life, from pocket change to childhood collections, has made it a timeless piece of Americana. By the end of the 1990s, the Lincoln Memorial Cent series was approaching its 40th anniversary, and discussions were already beginning within numismatic circles about future design updates that would eventually lead to the introduction of the Lincoln Bicentennial series in 2009. The 1994 Lincoln cent therefore stands as a symbol of stability between eras, bridging the classic copper pennies of the past and the modern commemorative designs that would follow. It remains an essential entry in the story of United States coinage, reflecting technological change, economic adaptation, and an enduring tribute to Abraham Lincoln's memory. The 1994 Lincoln cent stands as a reflection of the continued evolution of American coinage and the enduring respect for Abraham Lincoln's legacy through more than 8 decades of minting. When collectors and historians examine the 1994 cent, they see not only a common circulating coin, but also a small piece of a much larger narrative that spans art, economy, politics, and technology. The origins of the Lincoln cent date back to 1909, when the United States Mint sought to commemorate the 100th anniversary of Abraham Lincoln's birth. Before 1909, U.S. coins typically featured allegorical figures such as liberty rather than real people. The introduction of Lincoln's portrait marked a revolutionary moment in American numismatic history. Victor David Brenner, a Lithuanian immigrant and talented engraver, was chosen by President Theodore Roosevelt to design the coin. Roosevelt admired Brenner's earlier work depicting Lincoln and believed his portrait captured both dignity and compassion. The obverse design remained largely unchanged since its debut. Lincoln's familiar profile continued to symbolize honesty and unity values that resonated deeply with the American public even through times of change. By 1994, this portrait had become one of the most widely recognized images on any U.S. coin. Over the decades, the cent's physical composition and reverse design evolved to reflect economic pressures and cultural milestones, but Lincoln's image remained steadfast. The reverse design, introduced in 1959, replaced the original wheat ears with the Lincoln Memorial to commemorate the 150th anniversary of Lincoln's birth. Frank Gasparo, the designer, created a detailed miniature of the actual Washington, D.C. monument, which allowed even the seated statue of Lincoln to appear between the central columns. This design linked the coin directly to one of America's most visited monuments and helped strengthen the national symbolism of the penny. By the early 1990s, coin production was highly mechanized, and the mint had developed sophisticated methods to ensure high efficiency. Each year, billions of cents were struck to meet circulation demands, as inflation and consumer habits still required large quantities of low-denomination coins. The 1994 cent is part of this industrial era of coin production, representing the height of mass minting capability at the time. In terms of economic history, the penny had long faced debate. Over its continued relevance, rising metal and production costs had made the coin's manufacture more expensive than its face value, yet public attachment to the Lincoln cent prevented its discontinuation. The 1994 cent continued to circulate widely, despite growing arguments that the denomination had become obsolete for modern commerce. It was an example of tradition persisting even as economic realities changed. From a collector's perspective, the 1994 cent also belongs to an important transitional period in numismatics. During the 1980s and 1990s, the hobby saw a resurgence in public interest, fueled by improved coin grading standards, the expansion of third-party grading services, and the spread of information through numismatic magazines and early online forums. Collectors began to study minute die variations and minting errors with greater precision. This attention to detail gave even modern issues like the 1994 cent a place in serious coin study. In this period, the mint also worked to improve coin striking quality. The use of computerized engraving and die making allowed for more consistent features and sharper details on the Lincoln portrait and the Lincoln Memorial design. Although billions of coins were struck, minor differences from one die to another created the possibility of collectible varieties. The Philadelphia Mint produced over 6.5 billion cents, while the Denver Mint added more than 4.5 billion, making the total production surpass 11 billion pieces. In 1994, proof coins from San Francisco were struck in much smaller numbers for collectors, often under 2 million. The 1994 proof cents are notable for their high level of craftsmanship. Each was struck multiple times on specially prepared planchets to produce mirrored fields and frosted devices, creating a striking contrast known as cameo or deep cameo finish. These coins were sold directly to collectors in proof sets and are among the most visually appealing representations of the Lincoln Memorial design.